I am Captain Logan, and this is day 269 of Spawn Year. I'm feeling a little more upbeat today because I actually like where Covenant gets to, at least in his own mind, by the end of this one, even if I don't really buy that these events lead him to the profound change in attitude and motivation he comes to here. Covenant, now with enough strength to overpower his jailers, forces Marcellus and his disfigured Igor-esque henchmen to try to eat each other to death. That's an extreme, gratuitous, sensational, violent act we haven't seen in a Spawn comic yet. Yeah, he comes up with that because he was forced to eat a person before, I suppose, but Covenant's never been the cruel and unusual type, and even after all the trauma he's been through, I'm not convinced he's been driven to that level of cruelty. He's had a surge of evil energy from the rat, but he never did anything this sick while his veins were coursing with evil. Speaking of which, I still don't understand how Covenant can be revived by something that only works with infernal creatures if he's unquestionably mortal now. Why do his eyes glow green if there's no necroplasm in his body? So at least Covenant feels wrong about making people eat each other to death. Not that I feel for them. They're depicted as reprehensible creatures and nothing more. And he starts internalizing as he continues watching the bloodbath, asking himself if the punishment ever truly fits the crime. I think Spawn must be comparing what he's doing to these men to what Bolgi did to him. He doesn't decide he was too cruel until it's too late. He almost gives in to the evil, deciding this is just what he is now, but a prisoner we've spent almost no time with, but who I guess Covenant respects, reminds Covenant that he has the choice to do the honorable thing. Covenant promises his friend he'll go take back the life he lost, and I found myself reading that, wondering what exactly I think this man should do. As far as he's currently aware, his former subjects will string him up again if he goes home. Cog is untrustworthy, and he should never have gone to him in the first place. He doesn't want to be Hell's puppet, and in fact realizes God in this universe is no good either, so he'd just be handing himself back over to Malbolgia if he got his necroplasm back. He can keep going off and saving people, but Hell will try to get him back, and no doubt the book will spin it like he's running away from his problems again. That's the trouble with this premise in the long term. We're talking about a man who's already made his mistakes in life and is owned by evil. He can't win. Whatever he does looks like a bad idea, and the writing has to play up the consequences of it. The only reason Dark Ages worked early on was because it put the Celestial War in the background and put it off. So the stories were okay, but then it didn't make sense that Hell went hundreds of years without training or commanding their spawn to do anything. And it's far too convenient, the sheer number of spawns who, one way or another, lose part or all of their curse just because if they didn't, we're reading about guys bound to and controlled by Hell with no free will. Although they're left to their own devices, so often that's not quite true either. You know what, I give up. I'm confounded by the logic of this convoluted disaster of continuity. The bottom line is, Niles fell into a lot of traps in the main series with this arc, including forcing his protagonist where he wants him to go rather than progressing his narrative in a character-driven way and making it all about the origin rather than driving things forward. Covenant fights against the thieves that have taken Turnbolt, the city above the prison, which used to be a peaceful place but is now overrun with the Mongols who kept the prison. And somehow, when it's all said and done, and after a powerless spawn now can fight dozens of men alone, he's learned a valuable lesson, as the intrusive narration must tell us, because it's not clear from the events themselves what's happening. He's learned how arrogant and selfish he always was, and realizes his first sin wasn't being with the girl who died in childbirth, but in fact leaving her when she was his responsibility, to kill an enemy whose only crime was believing in a different god than his. And now he knows his god is a petty and unjust one. Okay, Then why wasn't this a story focused on unjust persecution beyond the subplot with the druids that ends in Gareth's partners getting killed, presumably by whatever massacred Covenant's village? Spawn's experience in the dungeon might make him more compassionate and less headstrong, but how does he get to this epiphany about what his true mistakes were? I actually think there may have been a good story here, but like a lot of McFarlane stories, this reads like a set number of issues filled up with whatever came to Niles' mind, with an ending set in stone and no thought to the road getting there. When plot drives characters in a story about choices and consequences, they stop being people and those consequences appear arbitrary. This story is propelled by verbose narration that tells us exactly how we're supposed to interpret what happens and how to feel about it. And that's why there's not much story to analyze here so much as ideas thrown on the page. I like some of the ideas, but kinetically progressive comic panels are a powerful way to communicate story when employed to their fullest effort, and this book doesn't know how to do that. Signed, Captain Logan.